The Great Adventure of St. Peter Nolasco. Hello friends, many great men have passed through history. Peter Nolasco was one of them. I still remember the day when I first heard his story. It filled me with such great joy. Ever since then, I decided to follow closely in his footsteps. It was this that prompted me to tell you about the great joy of this amazing man. May you be inspired by his life and work. I would be so happy if you, in reading this little book, see that ray of light that I once saw as you saw it in my life. St. Peter Nolasco. Peter Nolasco was born around the year 1180, north of the region of Caledonia during a moonlit night. He is still very small when his mother is surprised to find him with a honeycomb in his hands. From then on, she understands that her child is being called by God to something great, and she dedicates herself to educate him in the ways of faith, hope, and charity. Therefore, Peter meets the best of friends. One afternoon, while Peter was walking, he met someone whom he knew would always be his best friend, Mary of Cervellin. Mary, who, against her parents' wishes, had decided to dedicate all her life to helping others by becoming a religious sister. Hi, can I help you pick flowers? What is your name? Thank you. My name is Mary of Cervellin. Barcelona, the year 1200. The situation in the land is bad. The continuous battles between the Moors and Christians made it so that many are made captives. Peter Nolasco follows the career of his father and dedicates himself to the clothing trade. As a merchant, he travels to all the cities of the Mediterranean, and it is there that Peter sees the cruel and inhuman situation that affects Christians of his time. The captives, men and women and children, are taken and led into the cities of the Moors. Nolasco is distressed by the situation of these poor people. What will happen to them and their faith? But Peter is young and not mature in his outlook. Meanwhile, being of noble family, he participates frequently at the social feasts of the court. Time passes, and at the age of 21, he is made a knight, an important title at that time. On one occasion, Peter is praying to the Blessed Virgin Mary, to whom he is very devoted, asking to help the captives. He feels in the depths of his heart the voice of Our Lady, "Help my children that suffer from captivity because they are Christian." Moved by this inspiration, he feels called to found a religious order. With the goal of working for the freedom of Christian captives, he goes to King James I asking for help, and to the bishop of the city, Berender de Palau. Both the king and the bishops supports Peter Nolasco and encourages him in his work. On the 10th of August in 1218, before the bishop and King James, the Order of Mercy for the Redemption of Captives is founded. King James gives his royal shield, and he offers to the first Mercedarians their first house, the Hospital of St. Julia of Barcelona. Also, the bishop gives them the White Cross of the Cathedral of Barcelona for their shield. Then some young men, motivated by Nolasco's idea, join his work of mercy. Keep everything in common. It seems that Brother John is making some special kind of bread. Whoa, smoke. Patience. Once late in the evening, Brother Elias was instructed to wake others up, but he was in a deep sleep. And when he woke up, he saw a magnificent sun filling the morning sky. He suddenly realized it was late. Therefore, he called out to all the brothers and ran to the chapel for morning prayer. But to get their great surprise, they saw that the Virgin had not forgotten the time. There, presiding, she was reciting the office with the angels. Ever since then, an image of the Blessed Virgin Mary residing in the choir is in every Mercedarian house. And quickly they began their mission. And with the fire of enthusiasm, they went to villages and cities begging for the sole purpose of obtaining the necessary money to make a redemption. The greatness of the work is admired by all in the kingdom. This helps the order of mercy to become important in the eyes of the people. One bitter cold afternoon in winter, Peter went to the villages for the purpose of collecting necessary alms for the next redemption mission, when some robbers with sticks stole the bag and his religious habit, leaving him almost naked. "What are you carrying in that bag? I'll show you." "Stop. Calm down, pal. Just be patient. Give us the bag and you can go." And thus he returned to the house. In the meantime, the thieves looked inside the bag in search of riches. But they did not find anything of value. No money, only clothes, and on top of everything, pieces of paper on which the good people had written the names of their captive relatives in Africa, in hopes that they could be freed one day. Seeing this, the thieves decided to give back the stolen bag. Mary Servillian was the first woman to do this redemptive work. She was the first woman Mercedarian. Her love towards everyone was so great that many years later she was proclaimed a saint. Together with Mary Servillian, many other women gathered who collected things, prayed, and cared for the stick captives. They were among the first Mercedarian nuns. The majority of the friars dedicated themselves to the collection of alms, which two redeemers were put in charge so that the money they received could go to the lands of the infidels to redeem the captive Christians who were in danger and were thought of as mere merchandise. In this way, the Mercedarians were able to buy the freedom of Christians, always at the risk of their own lives. At other times, the exchange was made directly with the head of the city. However, things did not always go well. Peter Nolasco, by publicity, denouncing the poor treatment of those who were objects of captivity, was tied and whipped on more than one occasion. And there were many Mercedarians who, lacking the economic means, preferred to remain captive in place of those whom they had gone to redeem. Separation was one of these, and was to be the first Mercedarian who, like Jesus, died on the cross for the poorest of brothers. The joy of returning home was great, finally free. However, the danger was always there. No one could ever be sure that another ship would not attack them while on the way. On one occasion, during the return home, a Muslim ship, a battle begins. For a while, the fight is continuous. The enemy ship is set on fire, but a Mercedarian is held captive. You will pay dearly, friend. The Christians decided to return. We will return for Brother John. We will bring him back. We will return to Algeria and trick the guards. Let's go. They return under the cover of night. They disembarked at a solitary place. They headed towards the city of Algiers. There it is. We must disguise ourselves so we are not recognized. They approached the city gate disguised as peasants. In this way, they are able to enter the city. A guard was watching them from the city walls, but shadows hid their movements. Brother John was resting in his cell when, without warning, he woke up due to a strange noise, a rope. And because of the darkness of the night, he descended down the wall. His friends were waiting for him at the bottom. "Quickly, we must get away from here. Everyone is waiting for your return." But the guard heard the noise. "Stop. They have to make a quick escape. We must get to the ship." One that was following them calls himself a friend. Here, quickly, I'm a friend, enter here." He helps them. "Up here, hide yourselves in the attic quickly." They accepted him as a friend. He was an old Christian slave who had been able to buy back his freedom. "They made me a prisoner at sea 10 years ago. They passed the night there in the attic. I would really like to go with you, but there is no need for me here. We will never forget you. May the Virgin Mary protect you. Goodbye, friend." And they left the city until they reached the rowboat that would take them to the ship. In the ship, everyone was impatiently waiting and rejoiced when they finally saw the boat coming in. In Spain, they were waiting and worried. The Redeemer's ship was very late. A day, a night, some seagulls, land. It was a beautiful sight, and it meant safety, family, warmth, and peace. And everyone went in procession that the port all the way to the chapel that rose on a nearby hill, all the while giving thanks to Our Lady. "Thank you, Mother of Mercy." And those men, tested by the sorrow of slavery, were finally able to return home with joy, with a new life and a renewed faith. One night, Peter Nolasco had a dream. An olive tree was growing and flourishing, but some men were cutting the branches. The more branches they cut, the more were created. Suddenly he understood. The olive tree was the order, and its branches were the sons and daughters of mercy. Peter Nolasco worked with King James I in the conquest of Valencia. This is how Peter spent his life. At the age of 64, he went to Algeria in order to carry out his last redemption. In him, the young people had a great example of generosity. He had given all for the sake of others. A victim of a fever, which he got from one of the slaves redeemed from Africa, Peter Nolasco died at the 6th of May 1249, surrounded by all his Mercedarian brothers. His mission was over, but he has left us with the task of working for all those persecuted for their Christian faith. His death made everyone in the community sad, but then they suddenly understood that the work of Peter Nolasco must go forward. "Do not cry, Brother Matthew. Peter is always with us." From then on, all the way to today, there have been born with great vigor many Mercedarian congregations striving to realize the idea of Peter Nolasco. Other congregations of Mercedarians were born that work in missions, teaching, healing the old and sick, imitating the love of Nolasco so that all people might know Jesus. Following the example of Nolasco, the Mercedarians did wonderful things in America. They arrived with the first conquistadors, founded the first mental hospital, cured the sick, and worked for the independence of natives. But the greatest work was for the freedom of all Christians. Today, after 8 centuries, the work of Peter Nolasco continues to live in us. Well, our story ends here. I hope that everyone likes it. How about you? The work of Peter Nolasco also excites me. Since then, I am devoted to him, and I feel so very happy. Prayer to our Father, St. Peter Nolasco. To you I turn, St. Peter Nolasco, Father. and founder of our Mercedarian family, you have taught us to live this life by loving God and neighbor as Christ our Redeemer has taught us. Guide my steps today in the service of the poor, the oppressed, and the persecuted. Obtain me the grace and strength to face the suffering and chains which still bind so many in body and spirit. Obtain for me from our Lord a heart and mind truly free to follow your example of boundless love for souls, even to sacrifice of my own life. Amen.